Hi class, hi everybody. So for my presentation for this week, I decided to talk about ageism in society. And this topic was covered somewhat in session 7. So thank you. So the three big ideas that I pulled from this session were that there aren't many people who want to work with this population, those who are older adults. There's stigma for those working with older adults and the older adults themselves, and that older adults are facing their own mortality. So when focusing on the first big idea, there aren't many people who want to work with this population. I was thinking more about maybe people don't know much about this population, and maybe that's why they don't want to work with them, or maybe because it's not as, I don't know, glamorous or was it favoritized as working with children and other populations. So maybe it's not a very popular population to work with. And then the next one is there's stigma for those working with older adults and older adults themselves. More so that the stigma, I think that maybe the stigma comes from, yes, a lack of knowing of how to work with this population. Maybe also because this population, maybe because we don't know much about them, also because we tend to forget them or forget about them, and that could cause, I guess, maybe stigma as well because we don't know them. And then the third big idea, like I said earlier, was they are facing their own mortality. So just older adults are thinking more about, I guess, leaving death and also thinking about what they have accomplished in their lives and if they've done everything that they've wanted to do throughout their lives. And that can be very big and challenging for people to face when they're older, because it can be challenging for us now, even if we're not older adults. So imagining how you're feeling about yourself at the end of your life, and maybe you haven't been able to do everything you wanted. So that can be, I could see that being very challenging and hard for people to deal with. So the next question that was asked was, how does this relate to practice? So one of the things is, as we grow older in our profession, we will probably come in contact with many older adults. When we were, I think during the session last week, talked more about how America is going to be, I guess, graying, he said, and how America is going to get more older adults than we've ever had before. So that means that more than likely, many of us will come in contact or work with older adults just because there's going to be so many of them in the future. So my next thing was, as social workers, we are always working on our own biases. So that relates to previously what we talked about, ageism. Like I've been talking about ageism in society. So then, working on making sure that we do not pass judgment on those who are older adults, and making sure we don't bring our own assumptions when we work with this population. So then the last part of this little presentation is the practice recommendations that I have for this topic. So one of them was, as social workers, we can read and learn basic information about populations so we are not completely ill-informed. So that means just reading up and taking the initiative to learn more about what could be affecting these populations, and just knowing about what they're going through, so that when you do come into contact with them, you don't seem like you don't know anything at all. And then my next one is, there should be more of an emphasis from the social work community to get involved in this population, probably mainly because of how society is going to change and how this population is going to be so big. So we should think more about working with this population just because of how America's going to change. I also thought that there probably should be more programs put in place for older adults as they age out of their jobs and careers, and should be some sort of safety net for them in case they need it. Because I think we were talking about in class last week about people at their jobs and how they saw older people in their profession basically being forced out and retiring at a certain age. And, there should, it seems very careless and not very thought out very well for people to do that to others. So there needs to be like a change of how people handle situations like that, even if it needs to be handled. Or there just needs to be a change in how we treat people when they get older in our professions, and not just ship them out and shun them away, basically. So that is my presentation for this topic. Really enjoyed it. Thank you guys for listening, and that's it. Thank you. See you guys next week.